Sorry for the inconvenience, guys. The stream got disconnected because of Wi-Fi interruption, Wi-Fi reconnecting issue. The stream is now resuming.
The whole business model is low cost labor.
Absolutely. It's
now
an
AI coming in and tariffs, right? The industry is going to get affected.
Right.
So how could they possibly do a turnaround?
So see, I think so. This is something which we believe internally. One is India. It's unfortunate we didn't invest too much into some of these segments.
Yeah.
The upcoming, whether it is AI, etc. We just stuck to our model.
Correct.
Having said that,
We don't fix what's not broken.
right, exactly.
Unless somebody else fix it.
But having said that, our sense is they will still survive. The low cost arbitrage thing will continue for, because AI will take its time of evolving to that extent. The pressure that is there in the US on H1B visa, etc. A lot of companies will actually start looking at outsourcing more to India because India being the low cost area. So to that extent, our belief is the IT industry might not be a super growth area, but it will be a far stable growth, balance sheet, good cash flows, you'll make dividends. So this sector, excepting for some outliers, probably will still be able to grow at 14-16% and be able to pay you dividends.
Talking about stock growth or revenue growth? 14-16%.
I'm talking about returns will more or less mirror the earnings growth.
What is wealth management to a customer? My belief is that.
So let's go to another industry which you feel like there is some alpha to be made. Any industry that you can think of?
The other place where we think, consumption we believe should start coming back. Okay, it's gone through a good amount of pain. Some pockets out there can turn out to be interesting. Something that we probably will start, or we probably evaluating as we speak, is QSR. Okay, that's an interesting segment. Companies have invested, the stocks have got bombed out in the last 2-3 years because of food delivery companies they have taken. But I think where they have come to in terms of valuations vis-a-vis where probably over the next 3 years earnings can play out, and especially with the government focusing on pushing consumption to a certain extent. Also, mind you, the next year is when you have the pay commission revision also coming for the government employees, and they form a reasonable portion of consumption.
What does that mean, pay commission revision?
The government employees, every 5 years they get a revision on their pays, right?
Salaries. Okay.
Yeah, salaries, and it's a big population out there. Okay, and they're a large market. Invariably, it's seen that they go ahead and spend, and the spend is usually discretionary consumption. And by discretionary consumption, it could be ACs, refrigerators, 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers, dining out. It could be anything that you can think of. Any consumption which is not required, but since you have money, you will go ahead and spend, is discretionary consumption. We see discretionary consumption starting to come back, and probably in some of those segments, probably it could turn out to be very, very interesting.
So for consumption to increase, for that the interest rates need to drop, and also the savings rate needs to increase, and also your salary hike should also increase. Don't you think all of these things are going in the opposite direction for consumption to increase?
So we are betting on the fact that one is salaries itself will increase.
But we don't see that a lot.
The pay revisions should drive that.
For government employees, I understand, but for private companies...
So that's true. But one thing which has actually positively impacted every household in India, literally, is the way gold has behaved. Indians have been savers, and a reasonable portion gets into gold. There has been a 50% appreciation in their wealth portfolio.
Right.
So it might not be monetizable to that extent, but what is happening is it gives you a good sense of security. Your sense of security has gone up. That is one. Secondly, when you go down the strata, there are a lot of people who actually borrow against gold. So to that extent, their borrowing power has gone up. 100 rupee against 100 rupee loan, gold, they used to get 50 rupees. But today that 100 has gone to 150. So suddenly these companies, these people have access to 75 rupees worth of loans available. So that's a cycle which is actually playing out very positively in the lower strata of economy. And where you can understand, that's why the low ticket discretionary items is where the spending will happen.
Low ticket discretionary items is where the spending.
So you can define how low ticket could be. It could be anything, let's say, what we would, if you ask me anything below 5,000 or 10,000 rupees, okay, anything that is not needed. So it would probably end up in buying probably a mobile of 5,000 or 10,000 rupees or anything that you can think of in a low ticket side. You could define low ticket as 25,000, I could define it as 10,000, but anything which is not needed, but since you have this access, you'll go ahead and spend.
So right now, if I had to look at the 180 countries, and let's say you're not an Indian, right, and now I'm giving you the option, you can pick any country in the world to live, and the objective being making money. Which country would you pick?
Oh, that's a phenomenal question again. See, if I just look as an investor, okay, today, in fact, sitting in India, I'm allowed to invest across globally. Okay, you can invest anywhere. I think the differentiation is the taxation, right? Okay, so in India, if it's capital gains, 1 year it's 20. 1 year it is 20%, 12.5%. If it is below 1 year, it's 20%. If it is overseas, it's 2 years. You have to have a minimum holding period. If I just look at the same market accessible to me from Middle East, I literally don't pay any taxes. That itself is a 20% arbitrage sitting out there for me. So if the whole market is accessible from any country, I would look for countries where the income tax rate or the capital gains tax rates are the lowest. And that itself will drive extra returns for me.
So let us say you are living in Dubai right now. You are managing a 1 crore personal portfolio.
Right.
Sitting in November 2025. How would you divide your money, knowing that you can invest in any of the countries, any of the sectors, any asset class, anything? How would you divide your money?
So we've been, this is, though we don't have any gold or silver funds, but personally, I've been advocating gold and silver for some time, and it's been more than a year. So probably
this podcast, what we're going to do is we've divided it into multiple sections. We'll start with knowing what people should do and should not do in an interview. Then we'll go to the core BA skills questions. Then we'll take up the scenario-based or behavioral questions. And finally, we'll look at the case study questions.
So for me, a good answer would be something, where I actually look at the approach.
One of the things which people do in resume is to describe like an organization, my life goal and vision. So is it relevant? So when you make the resume, what should be at the top?
So when they start answering the question, chain of thought matters.
There's one term which is often confused with SRS, that is BRD. So when you create BRD actually, so there is a credit. So how do you handle that?
One stakeholder says that we want to launch this product on a website, and the other one says that we want to launch this on application, right? Say a mobile application basically. Now these are conflicting requirements. It will need different skill sets altogether.
So another situation which can happen is you have talked to the stakeholders and you have accepted or kind of literally taken the requirement from the stakeholder. And you go back to your tech team and they say, boss, this is not feasible. So what happens next? It's like
This happens, and actually this happens very frequently. Everything is falling apart. You don't know what to do. I learned this technique during my Luma training, which I call as rows, thorns, and buds. Now, when it comes to approaching any kind of case studies, the skill to ask the right questions matters a lot. Now, what I do is, I kind of create a box.
business analysis and data analytics. Every week we invite guests to talk about a particular topic at length. Today's topic is going to be very interesting. It's about how to face a business analyst interview and crack it successfully. Today we have two special guests, two senior business analysts who have been interviewing people who have faced interviews and they know how to do this successfully. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how to face the interviews, how to answer questions, some do's and don'ts, and when you walk in the room, what do they look for? This is all going to be there in the podcast. Let's enjoy the podcast. Hi Nitin, hi Ninath. So we are going to have 4 sections in this particular podcast. Okay, I'll introduce you to the sections in a while. Why not, let's start with the introductions. So Nitin, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Abhishek. First of all, thank you for inviting me for this podcast. I'm a CBAP certified business analyst. I've been in this industry from quite some time now. I have worked on process automation, I have worked on digital journey design, I have worked on AIML as well, which is the current buzz in the market. And I have been in the IT, I have been in banking, insurance, and I'm CBAP certified as well.
Okay, great. So thanks Nitin for sharing about you. So coming to you Ninath, just tell our viewers about yourself.
Thank you, Abhishek, for inviting me to this podcast. I look forward to sharing my experience and my project journeys into this podcast. I have been working into IT industry for almost around 12 years now. My major are into implementing digitization solutions for companies across different global locations into supply chain. I am good at requirement gathering and business analytical skills.
Okay, great. So great to know both of you. So in this interview, in this podcast, what we're going to do is we have divided it into multiple sections. So we'll start with knowing what people should do and should not do in an interview. Okay. Then we'll go to the core BA skills questions.
Right.
Then we'll take up the scenario-based or behavioral questions. And finally, we'll look at the case study-based questions. Okay. Let's start with one of you. Is to, when you see a candidate and whom you are interviewing, what do you exactly look at? Let's start with you.
It depends, Abhishek. If it is a physical interview, then body language is the first thing which I notice, because that's the first thing you see when they enter the room. I see how well groomed they are. When I say grooming, I'm talking about how neatly fine clothes, basically, and how well they are presenting themselves. That form handshake, that's the first sign of confidence for me. And if it is virtual, then I basically look at how oftenly they are, touching their face, how fidgety they are they looking in the camera and talking. So these are the few things which I look at, because that's the first impression, I would say, which matters to me at least.
Okay. So now coming to you, what are the common mistakes which typically people do in the interviews, whether it's virtual or physical, common mistakes which people do?
See, if I get into the details of this interview, then there is a typical question asked about describe your previous experiences. While answering to these questions, people tend to choose the wrong project where they may not know the entire details of that project, and that may put them in trouble if there are some additional questions coming from the interviewer.
Correct.
Right.
That's an important point. You should be actually expecting questions on the project
Right.
and choose the project carefully.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, if you look at somebody answering a question, okay, how do you think, okay, this is a good answer, or this is a pretty theoretical answer,
Yeah.
or this person is making up the answer? How do you evaluate that?
Okay. So for me, a good answer would be something, where I actually look at the approach. The questions which I ask in the interviews may not have a right or wrong answer, but I'm actually looking at how they are approaching it, whether they have understood the question first of all, and the decision-making skills which they are putting in place to answer that question. So when I ask these questions, I'm looking at what you have done, how have you done it, what skills, what techniques you have used, what outcome it delivered, any challenges you faced, and what were you learning. So these are the 5 elements I look at. And then bookish answer is something like, you ask someone what is gap analysis, and they just tell you the theory of it. They don't tell you the application. They don't tell you the challenges. They don't tell you the outcome. So a good answer for me should have these 5 elements when you're answering.
Okay. One of the things which people do in resume is to describe like an organization, my life goal and vision. So is it relevant?
See, I have personally never put these types of headings in my resume, considering the white space in the resume is very essential, and we should utilize it to showcase what we have done in our past experiences. We should speak about these goals and future plans during the interview in the introduction part of the interview.
Yeah.
That's a better way.
Yeah, so next question just follows this, is that, so when you make the resume, what should be at the top or the first page?
For me, it's summary. And summary means summary, actually. It shouldn't describe much about the project, but it at least should, talk about those milestones which you're proud of. It should catch my eye when I read your resume. So it should be crisp. It should be to the point.
Correct. So the next question would be like, so someone is either virtual or physically. So first time when you have a look at that candidate, how do you make out whether this is somebody whom I'm looking for or outright reject? Do you look for something, some trait at the first appearance?
See, as a human, this can happen with us, that we may get biased with the first impression, but I would usually avoid doing this. I would actually look at the character of that person. Initially, that person walk to me with dull posture, or in the virtual interviews, that person may look little bit dull, but that can be first impression. I would still go ahead and interview that person to understand the real character and experience.
Okay, fair enough. So, which means that in a virtual interview, obviously you can't watch a person that closely.
Yeah.
So, during the interview, okay, how do you make out about the level of confidence or the kind of traits, characteristics which you should have in the selected candidate?
So when they start answering the question, chain of thought matters a lot for me. And you should look in the camera while answering the questions. That's the trait which helps me in identifying whether they are making up things or they have truly done something in that field.
Correct. So, many a times it's quite natural also that when you go in front of something, either whether it's camera or in front of an interviewer, you feel nervous,
Right.
right? So, is there any trick to avoid that nervousness or not show it? Can somebody work on it?
Yes, definitely it is possible. There are multiple ways, I would say, that the tone of your answers should be very high, and you shouldn't show that you are worried about this role. So I would suggest just go with the attitude that nothing to lose. When you appear the different interviews with this attitude, then obviously the confidence comes to your face.
Okay. Okay.
I feel you should practice as well. Either
That's right.
practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of the camera, or practice with your friends or colleagues. That basically gives you confidence. Most of the time, which I have felt while interviewing the candidates, if there is a question which is kind of out of syllabus for them, they fumble, they get nervous, and by practicing these 3-4 pointers plus what Ninad mentioned, they get that confidence of handling tough situations as well.
Yeah. I think practice makes a lot of difference, right? So anybody can get nervous. In fact, first
Right.
time when I was doing podcast, I got really nervous and I repeated same thing multiple times.
Correct.
But with practice now, I feel I'm getting.
You got a hold of it.
Yeah. So it happens. So practice is the key. Right. Okay. So now we move to the next section of this podcast where we'll be talking about core BA skills questions. Okay. Or some core questions which are generally asked. Okay. So what I would like you to do is tell me the answer which you think is right, and also tell what people should not do or should not say while answering these questions. So I'll start with you. First question is, tell me about yourself.
Right.
So whenever you are introducing yourself, you should include your total years of experience, then what are your key skills and your education. And in addition to that, what are your future goals? So you will have to practice this question, practice this answer, and frame the answer correctly so that you can include all these parameters into that single answer.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Would you like to add something here?
I'll just add an example what Ninad mentioned. For me, introduce yourself would be something like, my name is Nitin, I'm a CBAP certified business analyst. I've been in this industry for say around 8+ years. I have worked on AIML, I have worked on digital journey design where we onboarded around 30K customers in the first quarter. So what I'm referring over here is the outcome, the KPI, which I'm proud of. Plus I also refer to the certification which I'm proud of, which is CBAP. And then you can also talk about, if you have been in the content creation. So I generally talk about content creation because I create content for the business analysis field. So I generally mention that, I'm an avid business analysis content creator. My content was published on IIBA's website. Again, something which I'm proud of. Plus Tech Canvas website as well. So talk about things which you're proud of. Talk about things which have shown tangible outcome. Plus some skills which you want to mention, such as, AIML is a niche skill right now in the market. So I know about AIML, so I'm mentioning it. So that is how I would frame, tell me about yourself. Now, feel free to add.
Yeah, I just mentioned the same thing. The skills, which are the AIML skills, the BA related skills, all that should be included in the introduction, apart from your education and other activities.
Correct. So the next question, which typically either at the end of the interview or before it, they ask you is, so why should we select you?
Okay. True. Generally, when you face such type of question, why should we select you, or why you want to join this organization? First thing is the experience which you will bring, and how that experience or your skills, techniques will help the team. So, for example, I know data analytics, I know AIML. This could help in process automation and process optimization as well. Say that in the interview. Plus a network of people across industry which you will bring along. Say that as well. Nothing works in the industry without collaboration. So networking is really important. So talk about all those points. I bring these skill sets. I bring a network of people from IT, insurance, banking. Talk about that, sir. All those things in the interview.
Right. So basically, it could also be helpful if they say that something which is relevant to the project, if you are aware of which project you're going to be put in or being considered, something related to that.
Yeah.
That will also be helpful.
Do your homework basically.
Do your homework. Correct. So now the next little bit into the business analysis activities. So questions related to requirements elicitation. Okay. So people generally ask, okay, how do you go about eliciting requirements?
Right.
So how should somebody answer it?
So to answer this, candidate should demonstrate the structured approach. So to give an example, if I receive the high-level business requirement or a one-liner from the customer, then I should be able to elaborate it and draw more requirements from it. That's the main ability of requirement gathering. So once I receive this one-liner, I can start with creating the epic, or if that is not happening, then start preparing for the stakeholder interviews, where you will be able to discuss this requirement and gather more details out of it. So I would expect from candidate that what preparation he is going to do for that interview. So he has to set the agenda. He has to share that agenda well in advance to the customer. He has to detail out what would be the possible requirements out of this business expectation. Once that is done, then the next step comes is the writing the user stories. Write those user stories, get it reviewed from the customer, get the approval, and then you are good to go ahead with the start of the development. So this is the usual journey of the requirement management.
Correct.
That should come out from the candidate.
So, as a follow-up question to that, he mentioned business requirement. So, typically the common requirement types are business requirements, functional requirements. So, general gap in understanding is difference between business requirements and the functional requirements.
Yeah.
So, how do you, if you are asked this question, how would you answer it?
For me, a business requirement is something which delivers value, which talks about the business aspect of it. And when you talk about business, it is value basically. It is all about tangible value. So it's the what part of what we are doing basically. Functional requirement for me is how we will do it, how that business value will be delivered when it comes to the functionality. And just adding to what Ninad mentioned about the previous question, stakeholders don't give you the requirements, they give you the need. And every need is not a requirement, it could be an aspiration as well. So if I have to give you an example, someone says that I want to build a home on moon. That's not possible. It's a good aspiration, you can do that, you can aspire for it, but practically it is not possible right now.
Okay.
So as a business analyst, it's our responsibility to dig out those requirements from the needs and follow what your stakeholders want. There are 50 plus techniques mentioned in BIPOC, but in my career, I have hardly used 10 or 12. So know about it, but do what your stakeholders want. They should be comfortable with the techniques which you are proposing for requirement elicitation.
Correct. So, you mentioned value. You want to add something, please?
Yes. I would like to give one practical example which will be easier for the viewers to understand how the business requirements and the functional requirements can be differentiated.
Okay.
So let's say we have a need of payment integration from the customer. They already have a website where they want to integrate the payment gateway. This is the business requirement. Now, one sort of functional requirement is that this payment gateway should be able to facilitate different payment options like credit card, debit card, internet banking, and in addition to that, it should also allow the consolidated payments. So these are the actually functional requirements from the need or expectations set from the business.
Right. So, you mentioned about the value. Yeah, business requirements actually bring value. So, value also brings into question the prioritization.
Correct.
Because ultimately, businesses have to prioritize the requirements.
Correct.
So, since value is one of the most important parameter, how do you go about prioritization of the requirements?
I'm going to give you a theoretical answer here. So one of the techniques which I have personally used is Moscow. A very well-known technique, which is must have, could have, should have, and won't have. Then I use $100 question as well, which is something like, we have $100, we have 3 stakeholders sitting, and we'll ask them on which particular requirement you will spend the most. So that becomes my number one, and subsequently followed by the rest. Then I have not personally used Kano that much, but I have heard people using Kano as well. Then there is value and risk too. I have used value and risk on some of the projects, but Moscow and $100 has been my absolute favorite.
Okay.
I can add more into this value versus risk technique of prioritizing the task. I can give a good example where I'm trying to build a solution for our customer, and there is a feature which is going to add immediate value to the customer. That will always be high in priority, but the feature which is going to add value at the later stage, but having a lower risk, that will be taken up at the initial stage. The reason being it has a higher risk, though it has a lesser value. So that is where we are trying to put a matrix of value versus risk in this technique.
Okay. So we talked about the requirements elicitation, we talked about types of requirements. Now, there is one term which is often confused with SRS, that is BRD.
Okay.
So when do you create BRD actually?
Yeah.
So you want to take it first?
Sure. For me, BRD is a document which will give me the context and background about the project. So as soon as I pick up the BRD, I should know what this project is all about. What are we trying to achieve out of it? What is the scope? Who are the stakeholders? In case we have some process defined that we have to pick up this element, that process diagram should be there in that BRD. So for me, BRD is, in layman term, is a document which will give me idea about what we are doing, why we are doing.
Okay. So at the stage where business requirements are discussed, do business analysts also get into planning process? If yes, what kind of planning business analysts do?
So definitely, BA planning matters a lot. You cannot proceed ahead without a plan. And when it comes to BA planning, the points which I take into consideration is who my stakeholders are. And the stakeholder analysis comes into picture over there. What techniques I will use, what communication and collaboration elements I will put into place. So I have a way of doing it. Whenever I create a BA plan, I add two columns over there. One is actual date of completion and estimated date of completion. Now, if there is a difference between that, I work on it. Why I was not able to meet the estimated date of completion, what challenges I faced, what learnings I had. So that is how I do when it comes to BA planning, to make sure that I am improving myself as well in the consecutive projects which I will take.
Correct. So you mentioned about stakeholder analysis in the BA planning process. So what techniques? So how do you do the stakeholder analysis?
So there are multiple ways of doing this again. There are these different types of diagrams or matrices which help us to actually map these stakeholders and what could be their roles, direct or indirectly involved in the project. One of the technique is the onion diagrams. I have used the ClickUp tool which facilitates this creation where you have a nucleus or a centered project goal, and then there are multiple stakeholders which are sitting around it in the periphery. The option is to even link these stakeholders which are sitting on these different circles. This will ensure that you understand what and how are they related to each other and what will be their contribution to this project goal or a task which you have mentioned at the center.
Okay, great. So related question. Once we have done the planning, we have conducted the elicitation, requirements are now captured. Okay. So always there is something called maker and checker concept, where you need to ensure that requirements are ready to be taken to the next stage, which is the design. So how do you ensure that requirements are clear, consistent, whatever framework you use, invest or whatever framework you use, how do you ensure that they meet the quality requirements or quality criteria?
Okay, I'll take an example over here. And I know invest is one of the most popular used techniques to make sure the requirements are clear, but I will talk about STAR over here. STAR technique, which is situation, task, action, and the results. So imagine you get a requirement. We want to increase the sales number. All right, but how? That's a vague requirement altogether. So I want some numbers around it. So it could be something like, I want to increase my sales from 5% to 10% sales. So this is the situation, right? What will be the task? I've been given the task to define a process flow or to come out with ideas how these sales numbers can meet 10% benchmark. So that's the task given to me. Now the action could be, we bring in the digital presence, we introduce more products, we introduced a payment integration platform which will increase our sales numbers. So that is the action which I'm taking, and the result is the increase itself. So that is how you make sure that the requirement which is given to you is actually achievable, measurable, testable. Again, the invest principle comes into picture over here.
Correct. So, and if, like you earlier said, that there's a difference between expectation and the actual.
Yeah.
Then you just look at it again and see what is the root cause, and then you move.
True.
Okay, great. So now coming to the next question is, and this is also a very common question in the interviews, is that what kind of documents business analysts prepare in a project?
Right. I think a few documents were already mentioned earlier.
Correct.
The business requirement document, BRDs, FRDs, functional requirement documents. So apart from these, there are some UML diagram creation happens. Then in some projects, we may have to even create the clickable mocks so that that can be understood easily by the development team, and that can be shared with the business as well, or your customers as well. So these are some of the typical documents.
I would like to add there. You know, most of the industries, most of the teams are right now working in agile model, which is a document less, or I would say not that heavy, document heavy methodology compared to waterfall. Now your BRDs are getting replaced with your user stories, your FRDs, SRS are getting replaced with your collaborations, which you do on daily basis based on your Scrum calls, based on your sprint retrospections. When it comes to waterfall, it is the methodology where you create multiple documents, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't know about it. Teams are moving from waterfall to agile, but as a BA, you should understand at what stage, project stage, whether it is initiation, planning, analysis, what type of document has to be created, what's the purpose of that document. That is really important. So that's the basic which a business analyst should understand. Agile is a later part which you also should understand, but then yes, start with the basics first.
Right. So moving on to the next section, which is about scenario-based and situational questions. So I know there are many questions which fall under core BA skills, but obviously we can't cover all of these questions. So what we did is we picked up some important questions, and you heard the two experts answering those questions. Okay. Follow those guidelines keep those guidelines in mind. That will be helpful. So now moving on to the situational questions. So before I start asking questions, one basic thing. So when you ask such questions, what's the thing which you're looking for from the candidates?
So there are multiple expectations from the candidate itself, because these situational questions will not only restrict to any one or two questions. When the interview happens, we try to check the different angles of the candidate. The main is the structured thinking, the ability to solve the ambiguity or the confusion in the requirements or the situation. Next is the stakeholder collaboration and the clear communication. These are, I would say, the main outcomes from these types of questions.
Okay. So let's start with a few questions. So there is a credit card company which is having profits coming down.
Okay.
And you are put into that situation, and you are asked, okay, solve this. How would you approach this?
Okay. My first step towards this problem would be to understand the problem itself first of all. So I can call it as gap analysis. I will interact with business, I will interact with ops, tech, and if I get a chance to interact with customers, I would do that. The problem could be the higher credit card, pricing, which the company has said. It could be operations is taking a lot of money, poor rewards when compared to the competitors. There could be a couple of reasons why the credit card company is not making profits, or you would say, the credit card delivery is taking a lot of time. So, and there are a lot of customer complaints as well. So there could be one single factor, or there could be multiple factors as well. So it is really important to understand the current state to define that future state and the path to reach there.
Correct. So basically what you're saying is that any such question related to any business scenario, you start first looking at why it is happening.
Correct.
And then how you can improve that to go to the future state where these problems don't exist.
Yes, I have